Hello my dears and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon and you know what? It's that time of year again. It's time for the mid-year book freakout tag. I've noticed this going around for like a week or so. I've done this definitely last year, I think the year before as well. I don't know who started this trend, but I know so many people in the book YouTube community do it, and it's just fun to sort of catch you up on how the yearly reading's been going so far now that we're officially halfway through the year, which is pretty crazy. The first half has gone so quickly, but here we are, so we're just gonna get on into it. And I got the questions here, screenshots, on my phone, and we're just gonna go through them. So the first question is best book you've read so far this year. We are starting off with a bang with these questions. I had to go for two with this one, and it was really difficult. It was really difficult to pick because I've read a ton of 5-star books so far this year. It's been a great reading year. But these two, one's a novella, so I'm like, it doesn't count. So I can do two. So we'll start with the novella. I actually read this. My dog's on the move. I actually read this. I started reading it at the end of last year, but I didn't finish it until the wee morning hours of January 1st. So I'm counting it as a 2024 book. And that is Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. And this is just the shortest, tiniest little book. And it's so beautiful. Like even inside the book, as short as it is, the print's very large. This is a beautiful, beautiful little book, and it's about a man named Bill who, so first of all, it takes place in the 80s, like in the mid-80s, in a small Irish town, and it's about a man named Bill who finds out something very disturbing. He finds something very disturbing, and that sort of leads to an unraveling of sort of what he thinks and what he thought he knew about his town. And it's incredible. You can read it in one sitting and it will just, I don't know, for me at least, it just really got under my skin and I think about it all the time. And I've also since learned that it's being made into a film, or it's already made into a film. It's not released yet, but starring Cillian Murphy as Bill, and he's also a producer on the film, and it's already debuted, or premiered at some film festivals, so now we just have to wait for the release. The second book that I've got to mention as best book read so far this year, and that is My Darling Girl by Jennifer McMahon. I don't think I've heard anybody else talk about this in any book related videos, but I loved it. I love Jennifer McMahon. She's an auto-buy author for me. And this is about a woman named Allison whose mother is very ill and is coming to stay with them. And, you know, Allison's not sure about that. She has a very tumultuous relationship with this woman. And the story kind of just goes from there. It's eerie, it's tense, and I loved every minute of it. Jennifer McMahon never misses for me. And I haven't even read all of her books yet, but I've read a good few, I think 5, and they're all excellent. A+. Best sequel. Now, I don't read a lot of books that have sequels, but earlier this year, I read the first 2 books in the ACOTAR series, The Court of Thorns and Roses, because I'm nosy, okay? I wanted to know what it was all about because everywhere I looked, I saw people talking about it, making content about it, so I've read the first 2. So I guess I'll give the best sequel to A Court of Mist and Fury because it's the only sequel I've read this year, and I did enjoy it, so there you go. And next question, let's see here. Favorite reread? Well, this year, hang on. I recently actually reread The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I think the only 2 books I reread this year was this and then Bunny by Mona Awad. Both I reread for my podcast that I have with my friend Krista. And Bunny, I mean, Bunny was amazing. I knew it was going to be. But this one I hadn't read in years and years and years. And I really enjoyed rereading it. I'll go into that more in a couple of days in my Everything I Read in June wrap-up video. But yeah, I think this one for sure. Genre you've been loving. Well, if you've been around here for a while, you're going to know that it's weird women doing weird things in weird situations. I've been eating that genre up this year. I read Death in Her Hands, My Husband, Bunny, of course, Big Swiss, The Pisces. I've got a pile more to read. Once I'm done, let me know if you would like me to make like a top 5 or top 10 books in that genre that I've read, just unhinged women. It's really fueling my soul lately. I don't know why. It's just so fun to read. And yeah, I'm loving it. And I'll take any recommendations that you have in the description box. Most anticipated, a new release you haven't read yet but want to. That is this guy right here, Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. The next video after this one is going to be a spoiler-free book review, but after that we're doing a book talk on this guy. I can't wait. I love Riley Sager. I've heard people say this is their least favorite of his, which makes me think I'm going to like it. Mainly because what I love about Riley Sager books is most generally they tend to go completely off the rails. And some people don't like that, but I do. I do. I like that a lot. So I'm excited to see how this one goes. What is next? Most anticipated released for the second half of the year. I would say the new Grady Hendrix book, but that got moved to January 2025. Other than that, I'm drawing a blank. I feel like a lot of my anticipated releases have all just come out. Like the new Paul Tremblay, the Small Town Horror by Ronald Malfi, the Riley Sager book. So I'm kind of drawing a blank on that. I'm sure as soon as I stop filming this, I'll think of a ton, but I'm not sure. I think they've all come out. But as the year goes on, I will find more ones to be excited for and to love. Next up, we have, biggest disappointment. For me, it was One by One by Freida McFadden. This was my second book of hers that I'd read. I'd read one last year, and then I read this one through the winter, and she's just not for me. And that's totally fine. But I wanted her to be for me because I know so many people love her books. But for me, they're just, you get to the end and there's a big twist, but there was no build up to the twist. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. I feel like for a big twist in a thriller to really work, there have to be hints along the way. And even if you're confused the whole way, by the time you get to the end, you're like, oh, yes, of course, you know? And her books are just, the endings are too out of left field for me, at least in the two that I've read. And maybe I'm just picking bad ones, but yeah, that was a disappointment. I was hoping the first one had just been not for me and then I'd love the second one. But I didn't. But I did up until a certain point. I thought it was a really interesting idea. So, biggest surprise. For me this year, one of the biggest surprises. Now I know this means a book in general, but I mean this is a book in general, but the biggest surprise for me was how well Christopher Pike holds up so many years later. And this wasn't even the greatest book. I think I gave this 3 stars. I was hoping for more like one of his classic ghost stories. This one was a bit more aliens. But reading it, I was so impressed with the way that you're never talked down to. Like, these are middle grade books, right, for kids. And it held up well, I found. So That's my biggest surprise. I really didn't know what to expect when I ordered the book. I just knew I wanted to revisit it. But is it just me, or are Christopher Pike books incredibly difficult to find? On Amazon, there's like none of the old popular ones. This was the only one I could find at the time. Maybe it's just Amazon Canada. Maybe in the States you have better luck. I don't know. So let's see, favorite new author, debut or new to you? For debut, let me just pull up my Goodreads here so I get his name right. I read a book by a debut author and I loved it. And that was called, hang on here. We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. I thought it was fantastic. It was very scary. I loved it and recommend it wholeheartedly. So if you're looking for something like a sort of haunted house story, it's so good. So it's these two women who move into this house. Their wives, they move in. And one day, a family actually, but the man knocks, the dad, and he says they used to live here or he used to live there, and he wants to come in and show his family around. Like, girl, you shouldn't have even answered that door. I'm telling you. So, I loved it, loved him. Look forward to seeing what else he writes in the future. Okay, now these next two questions are a little tough for me. The next one, so question number 10 is newest fictional crush. And I don't really read books that lend to having crushes on the characters. It's a lot of murder, a lot of hauntings, a lot of bad men in these books, you know. But if I had to pick one, I actually do have one. Last year I don't think I could name one. But this year I can name one. So in The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I really liked the demon, Luke. If I had to pick a character to have a crush on, it would definitely be him. He was great. Loved him a lot. So take that as you will. And then newest favorite character. I don't know. I do not know. Again, like, I feel like when you get into series and things like that, or series, you tend to connect more with characters. But again, in the books I kind of read this year, having read a lot of thriller and horror so far, there's not like a favorite character that jumps out. So I guess we could just go again with Luke from Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Just looking around now to see if that's accurate. I loved Bill in Small Things Like These. It's just not the kind of books I read. Okay, book that made you cry. And once again, we can go with The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, my reread of that. I found very, very upsetting. Very upsetting. Heartbreaking. Especially when you know how things turned out for her and the way that her life mirrors the book. And the ways that it's somewhat autobiographical. There were passages that had me sobbing through. Just so incredibly sad. Next question. Book that made you feel happy. Me thinking, oh, have I read any happy books? Oh, I know. I'm gonna go with That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion and a Werewolf. This was incredibly fun, incredibly funny, and it made me happy to read it. This is the second book. Oh, I could have used this for favorite sequel too, but I haven't read the first book. This stands alone pretty good on its own, but next month I'm going to be reading the first book for my podcast. So I'm going to do a book talk on that after I read it, but this was so good. It was so funny, so fun, lighthearted, and I loved it. So I'm hoping to rekindle those feelings next month when I'm reading the first book. Most beautiful book you've received or bought so far this year. And for me, that's going to have to go to this copy of Dracula by Bram Stoker. I wish you could feel it, because that's half of the beauty. First of all, I mean, it's just beautiful in general. The artwork is beautiful on the front and the back, but it feels almost velvety, and I love it, and it's so beautiful. And I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it. I've read it before, but I want to reread it, and I think I'm gonna do it this fall. Am I gonna do it this fall? Time will tell, but that's the plan. And the final question, hang on, I think I put my phone away too soon. The final question here is, oh, there's 2 more questions. Books you need to read by the end of the year. There's so many. I've got a whole queue on NetGalley of books to read. I've got the Riley Sager. I finally got a copy of S.T. Gibson's A Dowry of Blood. I'm so excited to read this. I'm a member of a group on Facebook. It's called like the North Atlantic Book Lovers Club. I of course live in the prairies now, but I'm from the you know, the East Coast and the Atlantic provinces. And so I joined this book group, and they have this thing where every Wednesday you can share your Amazon wish list. And I will tell you, the next day I received that book. Somebody had ordered it off my wish list, and it was like Christmas. It was so exciting. So I'm very excited to read that too. Plus there's just a ton. There's so many. And then the final question is favorite book community members. And I love so many people in this book community. I love every creator, every book creator that comes up in my recommended that I watch their videos. I love them. I just love hearing people talk about books that they love. Even if I don't like the books, or it's not my genre, or it's not whatever, I will watch people sit and talk about their favorite sci-fi or fantasy, even though that's not a genre I read. I just want to hear people talk about books they love. I love it. But to get specific, some of my current favorites are Books and Lala, Kayla, I love her channel. Katie Colson, I love Katie Colson so much. I love her so much. Jordaline from Jordaline Reads. I love Lexi. I can't remember the name of her channel because she's new to me. I just recently started watching. Love her. There's so many. Man, I love them all. And maybe one day we can all be friends. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me for today. Let me know in the comments down below what has been your favorite book that you've read so far this year. Tell me so I can add it to my forever growing TBR list. Also, if you know of any unhinged women doing weird things books, leave that in the comments below as well. And I will see you again real soon. Bye guys.